everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Monday, and the patch notes for patch 8.23 have been posted, and that means it's time for another patch note rundown. As always, I'll be going through the biggest changes in this week's patch, and letting you guys know what you'll be looking forward to in the coming weeks. Or should I say months, because this is the preseason patch. That's right, 8.23 is going to be the technical start of Season 9. Now, Riot are less about shifting up the meta in a big way this time around, and more about refining the current environment, making it better for players to play with in general. So there are a lot of shifts here. This will be a longer video than usual. I've done my best to cut down on how much I actually talk about here to get just the most important things, but I do highly suggest you read the actual patch notes, as there are a lot of details that I will be glossing over. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the biggest systemic changes that Riot are adding to the game this preseason. First and foremost, turret plating is a thing now. Turrets now spawn with 5 turrets. Outer turrets, I should say, spawn with 5 plates. These plates grant bonus resistances to turrets for each plate they still have. However, each plate that dies grants bonus gold to the person that killed it, spread out amongst nearby enemy champions evenly. Plates will also fall off at 14 minutes automatically, and any gold that you might have been able to gain by destroying them is lost forever. Additionally, after you destroy a plate, turrets gain a bunch of bonus magic resistance and armor for 20 seconds, and this stacks if you kill even more plates. So if you kill one plate, it gains resistances. If you somehow kill a second plate, it gets even more resistances, and generally makes it so that laning phase is going to last a lot longer than usual, and you'll have a lot more time to get CS safely before enemy teams can take down outer turrets and really open up the map. Minion waves have been generally buffed. They'll scale more quickly in order to give teams more opportunities to end games without Baron Nashor. Speaking of Baron Nashor, epic monsters now respawn slightly faster than usual. Initial Drake spawns, however, have been pushed back to 5 minutes into the game. However, you don't want to sleep on elemental Drakes now because they grant bonuses earlier on. So they still scale to be the same, so if you get 3 Infernals, you still only have 24% increased damage. However, the first Drake now grants 10% increased damage instead of just 8% increased damage, so you really don't want to sleep on those initial Drakes. It's a lot more likely that teams will want to fight over the first few Drakes instead of just seeding them. Rune stats are now a thing. So instead of getting stats based on whatever paths you've taken, so for example, if I am Resolve Primary and Precision Secondary, ordinarily I'd gain a flat amount of HP and some scaling HP, and then some attack speed. That's no longer a thing, and now you can choose which stats you want to have in the early game based on 3 specific tiers. I don't have them here, but generally keep in mind that you will be able to choose what stats you want to start the game with. So if you know you're into a counterpick matchup or generally want an easier time of things in lane, you will have the opportunity to just take flat magic resistance into LeBlanc, let's say. So that should be interesting to see how that plays out. Bounties now scale with gold gain from any source, so even if the enemy champion hasn't been killing everybody but is farming a ton, they will still be worth a bounty and will still grant bonus gold when they are slain. And finally, it's the only summoner spell change, so I want to talk about it here. Teleport's channel duration has been reduced slightly, but it now cannot be cancelled. So once you start that channel, you are committing to showing up there. So it means that the penalties for a bad teleport are significantly higher than they were before. Those are the general systemic changes that have been made to the game. It's not a huge shakeup, but it definitely does change what's going to be good. I think that you definitely have a lot more opportunities to play scaling champions in the meta currently. But anyways, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just focus on the changes. Moving on to champions. Aatrox is being nerfed on this patch. Of course, he needed them. He has been way too strong. So his R's duration has been reduced to 10 seconds from 12. So that actually times out exactly with his full Blood Well. His Blood Well has also been slightly changed, so the revive is actually buffed at final values. He'll be at 50% HP by the time it hits 80% of the Blood Well, and then it gains significantly increased value for those last 2 seconds. So generally, this is a nerf to Aatrox. You should have a lot more opportunity to wait out the duration of World Ender and just kill him, as opposed to being forced to kill him, wait for the revive, then kill him again. Ezreal's being buffed on this patch, and make no mistake, this is a huge buff to AP Ezreal, but this is a significant buff to AD Ezreal as well. His W's base damage has been increased, and the AP ratio increased, and his R no longer has fall-off damage. Instead, it just deals 50% damage to minions and monsters. That's a big change, and it can't really be understated. Definitely increasing the strength of AD Ezreal. AP Ezreal mains, of course, will be happy, but you have to think that AD Ezreals are going to be quite happy as well. Lissandra is getting changed on this patch as well. She is finally getting a new passive in order to replace what she had previously. And now she's getting some changes to accommodate the fact that she has a new passive as well, so keep that in mind. Lissandra's mana regen growth has been increased, and her attack speed has been, auto attack speed of the projectile has been slightly increased. However, she has her new passive, let's talk about that, Iceborne Subjugation. When enemy champions die near Lissandra, they become frozen thralls. These thralls seek out living enemies nearby, slow them down while they're near those living enemies, then they shatter after 4 seconds to deal AoE magic damage. This means that Lissandras who are able to suitably crowd control her enemies will be rewarded with frozen thralls that will detonate on said enemies, because thralls are not very fast, but it does reward Lissandra for playing in sort of CC heavy comps or saving her crowd control to keep enemies in place so the thralls can detonate on them. Her Q's mana cost now scales with rank, but it's generally been decreased. Obviously, this is to compensate for the fact that she no longer has Iceborne. Her W's mana cost has been reduced, but its base damage and AP ratio have also been reduced. Her R's AP ratio has been decreased as well. These changes are both because she now has damage in a separate source on her kit, so they need to have damage reduced. Her E's claw speed now starts out quicker, but moves slower towards the end. The total time to reach the max distance has been unchanged. This is so that Lissandra's claws over wall you can react to a little bit better than you could before, because you have more time to see it coming, but it also means that the snapcast W's are a little bit better. Moving on to item changes, just a couple I wanted to chat about real quick. Doran's Shield now grants more damage, or more health on damage from an enemy champ over time. It grants 30 up from 20. This should make it a lot better against poke champions and make you a little less likely to just get straight poked out of lane, but it also means that it's slightly worse against burst because it did have some other small nerfs. Meanwhile, Ginsu's Rage Blade has lost Phantom Hit. It no longer doubles on hit effects when it actually goes off. This is a huge change, it cannot be understated. I think it's the change that Ginsu's Rage Blade has been needed, but it has also gained some other changes to compensate for that. Its cost has been reduced, and it also grants hybrid penetration, so it will be better as a rush item without being so problematic in the late game. So hopefully this makes it so that Ginsu's Rage Blade is no longer a big issue for people to worry about. Finally, moving on to runes, we have some small changes here at the end of the patch. Celerity now simply increases movement speed bonuses and makes them 8% more effective. It doesn't grant any more adaptive force. What this means is that if your champion has movement speed bonuses inherent in their kit, or if you're just going for a build that involves a lot of movement speed bonuses from something like Nimbus Cloak or Phase Rush, you will get a lot more value out of them, but it is no longer there for just damage. Dark Harvest now only procs on low health targets, but it doesn't have the recently acquired Assault or auto attack requirements, so you can get Dark Harvest procs on abilities as well. This is pretty big. It also means that Dark Harvest is less bursty and less able to decide fights immediately. Instead, you have to actually get champions low enough to benefit from it. However, minions and monsters no longer grant souls. You must be farming this up on champions if you want it to scale into the late game. So I could definitely see this being a lot more feast or famine, but it does have the advantage of being better in the late game, so we'll have to see how this actually ends up playing out. Shield Bash is now a rune. I know I've talked about this previously. Essentially, the upshot is that whenever you gain a shield, you are going to deal bonus magic damage on your next auto attack based on your maximum HP and the strength of the shield. But you only get this damage as long as the shield persists on you. So if they do break the shield before you're able to get the auto attack, you lose any bonus damage on that auto attack that you might have had. This is replacing Bone Plating in Tier 1 of Resolve. Bone Plating, however, is sticking around. It is now a Tier 2 rune replacing Chrysalis. However, it's been heavily nerfed. It blocks flat amount of damage now and only lasts 1.5 seconds, so it's better against burst than it is against sustained damage or poke damage. So it actually has a reason to not be taken in some situations. Overgrowth is now granting flat HP per minion killed, but once you stack it up enough, it grants 2.5% maximum HP, so tanks that still really like the sort of scaling health will still be happy with this rune. And Kleptomancy actually can now proc twice. After casting a spell, your next 2 auto attacks will be able to grant bonus gold or potentially something better. So hopefully this widens Kleptomancy to a wider variety of users than just Ezreal. Anyways, that's actually the entirety of the big changes I wanted to talk about today for the preseason patch. Again, I highly suggest you look at the patch notes themselves. There are a lot of changes I didn't talk about and a lot of details I sort of glossed over, so definitely take a look at it because this will come to define the meta in Season 9 when that starts, so you definitely want to keep up to date on these changes. Let me know which changes you're most excited for down in the comment section below. I'm expecting to see a lot of people excited about the Lissandra passive and especially about the changes to The changes to turrets, I know a lot of people have been complaining about that for a while now, so that should be something a lot of you are excited for. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. And if you're looking for Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, which is linked down in the description. I upload articles just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.